Harry Tector lived in a quiet house on the edge of a small town. His home sat right at the base of tall mountains where thick forests touched the sky. A few years ago, Harry lost his family, and since then, he had been looking for peace and quiet. These mountains became his safe place. Every morning, he woke up with the first light of day, listening to birds singing and the wind in the pine trees. He spent his days enjoying simple things, walking in the forest, fishing in clear rivers, and looking at the stars at night. But deep down, he still felt a lot of sadness, and the silence of the night often made him feel lonely. One early morning, a mist still covered the tops of the trees. Harry stepped onto his porch, holding a cup of hot coffee. The chilly air felt refreshing, and he enjoyed the quiet. Suddenly, the silence was broken by the loud flapping of wings. Harry looked up and froze. Right in front of his house, a huge eagle landed. It was enormous, with a wingspan over 2 meters wide. Its feathers shone in shades of gold and brown, and its eyes were full of wisdom and strength. Harry's heart raced. He had never seen such a majestic bird so close. He felt both fear and amazement. Slowly, he stepped back, never taking his eyes off the eagle. The bird stared right at him, not moving, as if its gaze could see into his soul. Harry's fear began to fade, replaced by wonder and curiosity. Looking closer, he noticed one of the eagle's wings was hanging down and seemed badly hurt. There were dry drops of blood on its feathers. The eagle looked tired, like it had barely made it to his house. All of Harry's fear disappeared, and he felt only compassion. He stepped closer, making gentle motions to calm the bird, his eyes full of concern and a desire to help. The eagle, however, kept persistently looking toward the mountains. It tried to flap its wings, but the injured wing wouldn't allow it to take flight. Each attempt caused the bird great pain, and it let out a soft, plaintive cry. Harry felt that the unexpected visitor was trying to tell him something. He glanced toward the mountains, then back at the eagle. The bird's gaze remained fixed on one point, revealing intense anxiety. Gusts of wind grew stronger, bringing coolness and indistinct sounds from the mountains. Not knowing exactly what to do, but understanding that the bird needed urgent help, Harry decided to follow it. He quickly went back into the house, put on a jacket, and grabbed a backpack with necessary items: a first aid kit, water, food, and a flashlight. Something told him that the journey would be long and difficult. He felt a strange excitement and responsibility, as if someone's life depended on it. The eagle slowly moved forward, occasionally turning to make sure Harry was following. The path led through a dense forest, where trees stretched high into the sky, and sunlight filtered through the leaves in thin beams. The ground was covered with soft moss, and the air was filled with the scent of pine and freshness. However, after a while, walking along the trail became noticeably harder. The road was not easy. The trail became increasingly narrow and winding. They had to climb over fallen trees, skirt deep ravines, and cross bubbling streams. Harry felt his legs beginning to tire, but he couldn't allow himself to stop. The eagle moved forward with determination, but it was clear that its injured wing was causing severe pain. Harry noticed how the bird occasionally stopped to rest, emitting quiet moans. Each time, Harry felt the bird's pain along with it. At one point, they emerged onto an open meadow, offering a breathtaking view of the mountains. Harry didn't have time to enjoy the beauty though, as clouds began to gather in the sky, signaling an approaching storm. Despite this, the eagle persistently moved forward toward the rocky cliffs. The ascent became steeper, the stones underfoot slippery, and Harry had to be extremely cautious. The wind picked up, becoming gusty and cold. Harry felt his strength waning. Several times he slipped on wet rocks and nearly fell into an abyss that ominously yawned beside the trail. His heart pounded with fear and tension, but the thought that someone ahead needed help gave him strength. Despite its injury, the eagle continued to move forward stubbornly, setting an example of courage. At one point, the trail was so narrow that Harry had to press himself against the cold rock, trying not to look down. Below, a river raged, and the roar of its waters heightened the sense of danger. One wrong step could be fatal. Cold sweat trickled down his back, but he mustered all of his willpower and continued on. Finally, after several hours of arduous travel, they approached a sheer cliff.
Before we begin, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell for more heartwarming stories.
The eagle let out a long cry, full of anxiety. Harry looked up and noticed a large nest high on the cliff. Faint chirps came from the nest, and Harry's heart tightened with pity. He immediately realized that the nest held hungry and freezing chicks who wouldn't survive without help. Harry knew he had to act, but how could he reach the nest? The cliff was steep and dangerous. He looked around and noticed a narrow path leading upward. It was a risky route, but there was no choice. He began the ascent, clinging to every suitable ledge and protrusion. His hands slipped on the cold rock, and his legs trembled from the tension. The wind grew stronger, as if trying to knock him off his feet. At one point, a stone crumbled under his foot, and he lost his balance. His heart stopped as he felt the ground giving way beneath him. But at the last moment, he managed to grab a ledge and regain his footing. His breathing was ragged and fear filled his eyes, but he couldn't give up. Reaching the nest, Harry saw 3 small eaglets shivering from cold and hunger. Their faint chirps tore at his heart. They were so helpless that tears welled up in his eyes. He carefully wrapped them in his jacket, trying to warm them. The eyes of one of the chicks met his gaze, and Harry felt an incredible connection with the tiny creature. The descent was even more dangerous. His feet slipped on the wet rocks, and his hands were numb from the cold. But despite all the difficulties, Harry safely reached the ground. The eagle watched him, emitting joyful sounds. The bird came closer, and its eyes expressed deep gratitude. Harry felt warmth in his heart, realizing that his efforts were not in vain. He understood that the injured eagle couldn't care for the chicks until its wing healed. Harry decided to take them home and care for them until they recovered. Returning to his small house, he set up a warm nest for the chicks near the fireplace. He fed and cared for them day and night. The eagle was always nearby, watching his every action. Sometimes it made soft sounds that seemed to express gratitude and trust. Days quietly turned into weeks. The wound on the eagle's wing gradually healed. Thanks to Harry's care, the chicks grew, becoming stronger and more active. They learned to spread their wings, making their first hesitant attempts to fly. Harry watched their progress with a smile, feeling pride and joy. In the eaglet's eyes, he saw a desire for life and freedom. One day, when the sun was shining brightly, Harry took the chicks outside. They cheerfully fluttered their wings, feeling the fresh wind. The eagle watched them with pride. To Harry's surprise, the little eaglets flapped their wings and rose several meters into the air. It was their first independent flight. Joy filled his heart, and he was amazed to feel like part of their feathered family. But along with joy came the realization that soon they would have to part. The eagle had fully recovered, and its chicks were ready for life in the wild. Harry felt the sadness of the coming goodbye, but knew he couldn't keep the birds. Their true home was the sky and the mountains. The day came to say farewell, and Harry stood at his door, watching as the eagle and its young prepared to fly. The birds came closer. The eagle gently touched his shoulder with its beak, and the eaglets playfully jumped around. At that moment, Harry felt tears in his eyes. He knew he would remember these moments forever. The birds flapped their wings and rose into the sky. They flew in circles above the house, as if to say goodbye and thank him. Harry watched until they disappeared over the horizon. To his surprise, Harry no longer felt the deep sadness about his past. He no longer suffered from loneliness. He even began writing a book about his amazing experiences, finding joy and new purpose in life. The eagle family didn't forget him. Sometimes they would return, flying high over his home at the edge of town. Whenever Harry saw them, he would bring out a large piece of fresh meat and smile as the birds gratefully accepted it. These visits became special moments he looked forward to. In this way, Harry found a new family, not the usual kind, but one that was very close to his heart.